A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, the Banana Splits movie. What do all these films have in common? Did you hear me?
I said, what do all of these?
They're all slashers. A subgenre of horror that is described as a film with one or more stalkers that are killers hunting a group of people, usually with bladed objects.
Beyblade, let it rip.
Though the genre had peaked in the late 70s, early 80s, that wasn't the beginning, oh no. There are even earlier slasher films that have since grown a cult following. Later I'm going to go deeper into the actual first slasher films, but what led to such culture-shifting movies? In Pigalle, Paris, there was a theater that opened in 1897. It was famous for showcasing horror shows and eventually was shut down in 1967 for audience members believing that the shows had parallel moments to ones that actually happened in the Holocaust. Not a good reaction, I must say. If I was being blamed for shedding light or making money off of events of the Holocaust, I probably also would shut down. The Lunatics was shown in 1912 and showed violence that attracted people in a way that really hasn't been used before in plays. Not attracted as in turning them on, but more or less intrigued them, I guess would have been a better phrase to say. Those shows like the Lunatics made people want more. Some people did not like the gruesome violence. Therefore, we got the Hays Code of 1930. This code pretty much gave like our first censorship in films. This would be nudity, illegal drug trafficking, profanity, and more other ones. Films that were based off of plays and novels were then produced, like The Bat, made in 1926, The Cat and the Canary, 1927, or The Old Dark House. These can be technically considered as some of the first slasher films, considering some of the horror tropes that they possess. There are many shows like these listed, but The Bat was one, if not the first, to have a killer wearing a mask and hunting a group of characters in a mansion, which that sounds a lot more like a slasher film than a lot of the others. It was a silent film based off a Broadway play, featuring a man that kills others in a bat costume. After the murders, he leaves a bat-shaped note and he lurks around stalking the individuals until the final confrontation. Imagine Bruce Wayne, but not that cool. Inspiration was taken from shows like The Bat, and eventually more films like this were made, but one sticks out like a sore thumb that most of you probably have already heard of. I'm talking about Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, released in 1960. This film was criticized by movie studios because of the scenes including violence, sex, and toilet flushing, which is a no-no in cinema. Come on guys, we all know this. This film was also very inspirational to young filmmakers, even to the score. After Psycho, Peeping Tom was released, showing the killer's perspective of the events in the movie. The movie was nominated for 4 Academy Awards and showed actors and actresses that there is money to be made in the horror genre, which also made the producers rub their greasy little mittens together, excited to make some money. But what made Psycho so good? Was it even good? Well, Psycho has a 97% on the tomato meter and 95% audience score, so that answers that question. The movie was based on a novel under the same name written by Robert Bloch, which focuses on the interaction and investigation of Marion Crane and Norman Bates. The film is highly praised and is considered one of the best movies of all time. Without this film, we may have never got the acceptance of the Hays Code for the benefit of storytelling, so thank you, Psycho. You guys may have heard of the Bates Motel or even the famous shower scene that everyone raves about. The film is definitely in the conversation for best films ever made, not even talking about horror films, but some of you may be asking yourself why. Well, not only was it the first to do a lot of things in regards to horror in general, but even for today's standards, it does things really smoothly and well. The thrills and scares aren't too cheesy or over the top, and you get invested in the story, and the twist is really unexpected even if you're watching for the first time in 2024. Though there are many features that make it so great, let's go deeper into what the shower scene did for slashers. Obviously, the soundtrack is super popular. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you know that sound. There's a documentary that goes into the shower scene specifically and the many shots that they had to film for the scene, which is crazy because it's just one scene, but I'm telling you, people love it. Not to sound vague, but really everything in the scene is perfect. The cuts, the sounds, the screams, the blood, it's just perfectly done and impressive as since it's filmed in 1960. It sets the scene for what slashers should be, and some follow it, but a lot don't. Most slasher films try to capture what this movie did, but cannot. There were a lot of creative minds attached to this movie that others just can't duplicate. It's not over the top and captures you in fear even in today's standards, and it just holds up, which is really rare for a film that was made in 1960. I know I keep on beating that in, but like, that's crazy. Beating that in, hey yo. Slasher film producers took notes. I honestly think the fact that you can't see a lot due to the guidelines helped this movie. They show things that they weren't supposed to, of course, but for the most part, they let your mind create a scene for moments like the shower scene or just the gruesome stuff that they couldn't show. There are many theories as to what the shower scene truly means, some being a reach and some making sense, like the shower washing away her guilt and other stuff like that. The fact that there's so much substance in a scene, whereas other movies in today's standards would just see it as an easy jump scare, just shows how much thought actually went into this film. The acting is also really good in the film. Norman seems like a charming young man that just simply runs the motel. The mother is very spooky and ominous. Lila and Sam are convincing and have us sold on the investigation. It's just good. I don't want to beat a dead horse with this movie since it's not a review, but I can make one if need be. But I should probably talk about what this does for slasher films. Obviously, a lot of slasher films try to follow their footsteps, which is hard after you got the golden standard so early on. So what happened? Well, with the producers and writers taking inspiration from this movie, that created the slasher film tropes that we know of today. The final girl, the sharp objects, the killer with a mask, etc. Slasher films flipped stories like Psycho and made them more of a fun watch and realized that they don't all have to be perfect cinema, but rather a fun watch with spooky imagery. You can get scared while watching it, but also enjoy the movie overall. A Nightmare on Elm Street is scary to most people, but also can be viewed as a fun, intriguing watch for people like me. Slasher films took on a new impression for people. It's a genre that has a following, and each film is just different in its own way. Psycho being seen as one of the first, if not the first, showed us that slasher films can be more horrifying and spooky, or silly and gory. There's a spectrum within the subgenre, and without Psycho, we could have never gotten some of the beloved films that we have today. Psycho walked so slasher films can run. Thank you for watching. If you want me to compare Psycho to another film, let me know what the other film should be in the comments. And also let me know what you think of Psycho. Have you seen it? If you have, what were your opinions on it? And one last thing, please consider subscribing as 97% of you are not yet subscribed. And I will see you guys in a couple of days. See ya.